now begin a very special and forward-looking session of the day, the Young Leaders Panel. This session brings together emerging young leaders from across ICC member organizations with the aim of spotlighting bold perspectives and innovative thinking to tackle India's schooling challenges at the subnational level. To guide this dynamic session, I'm pleased to invite the moderator for the Young Leaders Panel, Mr. Jayanta Chaudhary, Director, Marketing Alliances and Partnerships at AEEE. Jayanta, over to you.
Thank you, Smriti. May I request the panelists to kind of join in? I'll just introduce them. I mean, we are cognizant of time and I think we are a little late. So Divya, fellow climate from CLASP, Jayashri, Senior Program Associate, WRI India, Sai, Research and Advocacy, focus from ICLEI, Shivani, Senior Research Associate from AEEE, and Shravan, Program Associate, CEW. So welcome guys to the panel, and thank you so much for joining in. So I'll just like to start by saying that a warm welcome again to all of you, and from the Secretariat perspective, I think we had a fantastic start. We are really happy that all of you could join us today. ICC is something which is very close to my heart, and I always keep saying that the collective knowledge and the wisdom that the group of organizations bring is absolutely mind-boggling. And I think this is a very good representation of the kind of the talent, the knowledge, and everything that we have. And I'm very happy that we have young leaders who are there to join in this particular opening session. And I think from personal perspective, I think there's so much inspiration that I've got, working with young leaders across different organizations I worked for a startup and even at AEEE and other organizations where the average age is probably between 25 to 35. There's so much to learn from the energy, the passion, refusing to accept the status quo, and again, the willpower to make a difference, I think, which is so inspiring in many ways. And I think when the team actually told me that they wanted me to moderate this session with all of you, I think I was extremely happy. I thought it's because of my youthful appearance or young at heart, but then they actually told me no, they wanted somebody very old to moderate a very young panel, for a change. So, which again brought me back to, kind of earth, but it's absolutely a pleasure. And the whole idea is going to be a very frank Q&A. My idea is to pick your brains as young leaders. We'll have more questions, probably 30 seconds to a minute of response would be great. Speak your mind, don't be diplomatic. There are no right, wrong answers. You come with various different specialities, so you can speak about the area that you kind of work on. And I think from my perspective, I think it's very important that, I was actually asking them, of all of them are Gen Z, so of course we have a mix of millennials and Gen Z here. And my daughter is one of the Gen Zs and, difficult, age to kind of manage. But she keeps telling me that, there's a natural rule that every generation is more intelligent than the earlier. So, I mean, as a Gen Z, she's very proud of that fact. And she says, okay, it stops at Gen Z because they said we don't have much hopes of the alphas. So that's a separate discussion. But I think we have the millennials and the Gen Zs here. I think I'm not envious of you because one is you have to bear, all the problems that I think generations like ours have created. But also, I'm very happy that you guys are absolutely, I think, fit to lead the battle and solve and clean up the mess that generations before you have kind of left. So starting from that, I think just the first question I would love to understand is what kind of got you into this space? What got you interested in the climate action area? Is it one experience, a moment, or something that you heard did? Would love to understand from you. So maybe Divya, start with you and then take it forward. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Hello everyone. So I am Divya. I am a fellow at CLASP and I'm working as a part of the climate team. So it's been just 2 days that I've joined the organization, so I just want to be clear on that front. If I just I'm not very much like transparent on what the organization. I want to be transparent, but I may not be knowing a lot about what has been done at the program front as a part of CLASP. So just want to start with what made me much more interested in the field of environment. So I have a background in economics, and then I started pursuing masters in environmental economics. So by actually studying environmental economics, it made me much more much more exposed to the area of climate and energy. And then I obviously, post pursuing my master's, I also did a PhD in the field of energy economics. So the whole concept of climate change was much more accustomed in the sense when I was pursuing my PhD. And I was not very much aware of the concept of climate change before that, like when I was pursuing my bachelor's and during my school days. Obviously, nowadays, youth is much more exposed to how climate change is affecting the planet as well as affecting the human lives. But for me as a person, I got much more, like the concept of climate change got introduced when I was pursuing my PhD. So if you just look at how climate change is affecting the planet, it's really having a disastrous impact. We all know that. And then climate change, the most significant impact that I can actually see is the increased frequency of extreme weather events across all over the globe. So I eventually, when I was pursuing my PhD was much more focused on the effects of climate change on electricity consumption. So there I looked at how the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events has been increasing in India, and particularly if you look at the heat waves, the intensity and frequency has been increasing. And living in Delhi, I actually witnessed that heat waves have been becoming much more prevalent over the years. So this is what actually made me realize that climate change is not just in the books, but it's really happening. And we are witnessing heat waves as a part of, if we talk about Delhi, for example, it's been increasing at a much more unprecedented rate. So this is what made me like strike that thing that, okay, climate change is really an important part of our life and should be tackled in a much more better way and a nuanced manner in the future. Yeah, so that
Thanks.
is what.
Sai, would like to go next? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jayanta and the ICC Secretariat for putting this day together. My name is Sai. I am a Deputy Manager with ICLEI South Asia. ICLEI South Asia is a network of national and subnational governments working to advance climate action. Jayanta, to answer your question, I think the moment is actually quite clear in my head. Growing up in Delhi in the late 90s, early 2000s, if some of you remember, Delhi was a very, very polluted place, like it is today. But the dialogue back then wasn't so much about climate action, it was about air pollution and abatement. It wasn't just the scale of the problem, I was probably too young to realize that, but I remember civil society coming together, scientists coming together to put out the extent of the problem, the Supreme Court stepping in, bringing in CNG, cleaning up Delhi's air, and this is all something that was in the recent past. So for me, growing up during all of this was my kind of initiation into thinking that, okay, there are problems, but then there are solutions. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Sure, Shravan, you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Shravan. I work as a program associate at Council on Energy, Environment and Water. We are a not-for-profit think tank based out of Delhi. And I work more on heat action plans and research on heat risk. So how I ended up in this space is, I mean, it's not a lived experience or a light bulb moment as such. So since my childhood, I think I was really obsessed with atlases and geography as a subject. And when it came to pursuing my graduation, post-graduation, so I did not want to get into engineering or get into the generic whatever the professions are there. So I picked up earth sciences for my bachelor's, and for my master's I took up geospatial technology. So I think I ended up much more naturally in a way, based on my choices of education. But yeah, I mean, after working with on climate risk, what I've realized is, based on my multiple interactions with disaster management experts or the agencies, so if you were to ask them, okay, okay, we need to deal with cyclones, we need to deal with floods. I think the solutions are much more clearer. Cyclone, you have a cyclone, there is an early warning system, you put people in shelter, or you reduce the exposure. But I think heat is the biggest challenge that we are going to face, and no one really knows how to tackle it, right? So we don't even really know whether what we are calling heat wave or heat is actually that. We don't even know if we are measuring heat properly. So this is what has motivated me, that there is a lot of work that needs to be done on building heat resilience from multiple perspectives, whether it's from a climate science perspective, from a public health perspective, or from a cooling perspective. So yeah, I think we all
Great.
need to work together for that.
Thank you so much. We have Divya. Sorry, Jayashree.
Hi, I am Jayashree. I am working as a senior program associate as WRI India. So what got me to answer the question of what got me into energy, in the field of energy is, so I am basically based from the Northeast, I'm from Assam. So it was not a single moment of realization. So what I've seen is gradually in the past 10 to 15 years, I've seen my city changing. Assam has become very unlivable, it has become very hot. So then I gradually started to realize that things have to change and our cities have to be built in a more sustainable way. So yeah, that's what's got me into this field.
Shivani.
Hello everyone, myself Dr. Shivani Shukla. I'm a part of AEEE, and what is my interest in climate change and when was that moment is when I was studying in IIT Roorkee, and then when I was working in Uttarakhand, which have the history of disaster. There I visited many places where the disaster already happened. Like in 2013, my MTech was in 2013, there the Kedarnath tragedy happened, so I visited that location. There I found that climate-inducive disasters is creating a disastrous situation. There is loss of life, damages to the lost properties, livelihood of the people, the infrastructure development. Then I realized that yes, climate action, climate change is the thing which is the immense need of this era, and we should focus on that. So that's my moment when I saw that disaster situation. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think great to hear different perspectives of why you all joined. I think we need more people like you. So I think keep inspiring. Be in your alumni and your colleges and schools. Keep doing that, because I think it's a sector where need a lot more people to join in. Be way more active. So I think great job done. Pat yourselves at the back, and keep inspiring other youngsters. So I think I think a natural question is, we all call you future leaders. So I think we just wanted to understand that, are you given enough authority or decision making, or just treated always like future leaders and not really current leaders? I think what is the challenge or the experience you have had? And again, feel free, if you have packed up all your bosses and send them to the next room. So I mean, you can speak completely non-diplomatically here. So just let me understand. So if you want to start, Divya. Yeah.
So just to be frank on that front, as a part of, like, if I talk about research, and then we do analysis and do different sort of like research and analysis on thought-provoking ideas, then at a back end, obviously we are doing that, we are playing that role of bringing the change and like giving policy recommendations, for example. And then in that sense, we are obviously having that power to make decision and have an impact on the decision makers. But still, I feel like, for example, during my PhD, like the thesis which I wrote, at that end, like I was obviously not given that much of an opportunity to present like my research to this relevant stakeholders, like for example, the government. So in that sense, I feel we are not given that much of an authority or that responsibility to drive the impact, in the sense of like having a real change and making like impact in the sense of the policies. So yeah, I feel like it's both sides. We are playing a role, but still, if we talk about at an individual level, then there's still a lot much to be done.
Absolutely. I think it's for the senior leaders to walk the talk and actually give more opportunities. I completely second that. Sai, your experience?
So I have a similar answer as well, and it's mixed in that there's several areas where young people are driving the agenda, driving the research, driving innovation, investing in places that the older generations are not. But on the other hand, when it really comes down to, let's say, the policy level, where we need the government to step up, there are, of course, entrenched interests. There's a bigger fight ahead, and nothing is going to happen in a hurry. So I would say it's a mixed bag.
So I think there are two ways I see. One is that, see, I come from an organization where the median age is 28. So we do have a lot of young people, and it's a very young team. And I think I have work experience around 3 to 4 years, and I already get to work with a great team. There's Divyanshu, Prerna, Soham. I know they are part of my team, and I get to lead a team at this young age. So I would definitely say that there are a lot of opportunities at organizational level. At the work level, so I will just give a brief of the work that we are doing. We are supporting 50 cities in developing their heat action plans with our scientific input and technical inputs. And we are also joined by Beheraji from OSDMA and Vaidyanathan sir from the Tamil Nadu SDMA. So I think whenever we speak something or whenever we have ideas, I think they are very open to it, because the younger generation is seen as those with fresh ideas, with new technical ideas, with no technological solution. But then they have the practical experience and lived experience to know that, okay, this is a very big idea that might not really work. So I think it's a mix of both is what I have seen, and I think it's very important as well to see what is practical and what is not.
Oh, great. Nice. Yeah. Yashvi?
From an organization point of view, they are very supportive for young professionals, and our ideas are taken. They do pay heed to our ideas, but I feel the roadblocks come when I have to deal with the government. So they do not take when they see a young person, they do not take our ideas or what we say very seriously. They always want our bosses to be there with us to be taken seriously. So yeah, I think that's where I face a lot of problem when I have to do engagement with the government sector.
Yeah. Completely agree. Shivani?
I think currently this young professional are considered as future leaders, but things are changing. And there is need that even the young professionals should be the part of the discussion table, and they should be involved in the decision making, the policy making things and other part, and with the scientific fact, of course. And with the time, even our ideas will get much more mature if we will start from step one, that at least involve us in the discussion things, in the designing part, in the execution part, and the things are changing, I guess.
That's positive to hear that the things are changing at your end. But maybe another question, one is of course on your experiences, especially in the ESG and many of the fields that we are seeing today is, while we are talking about a lot of the climate change initiatives and action, there's a lot of greenwashing that is also happening. So you also work in various different research, come across products and solutions and others. So I just wanted to understand, how do you really, handle these contradictions in your own work? Sometimes, are you able to call out some of these greenwashings, or because there are a lot of vested interests there, whether it's, a partner, a funder, or, the industry partners whom we are working with, there's of course a lot of pressure. How do you handle this? I mean, what's your experience?
So if we understand like greenwashing, where companies are actually just claiming their products to be environmentally sustainable when they are not, they're advertising them in that fashion. So if I talk about CLASP as an organization, then we have been consistently focusing on the aspect of making the norms much more stringent if we talk about appliances like the energy efficient appliances. But we still see, like, for example, companies are, for example, they put up an advertisement saying that their LED bulb or LED appliance is actually much more energy efficient, but there is no such sort of a comparison to make, and they have not been claiming that before. So that still holds much of a problem. But at an organization front, we have been focusing on making these norms and standards much more complying with them, and obviously making them much more stringent. But at an individual level, I feel like I would want to restrict myself in not making an opinion. Yeah, thank you.
But are we doing enough? Are we calling it out enough? I mean, would love to understand. Sai?
So I agree with the panel. There are, especially on the industry side of things, there's a couple of misleading or false advertising or marketing that's going on. Especially, let's say, in the case of household air conditioners, when you say that, okay, a particular cooling gas is not harmful to the ozone layer, but then it is 10 times more harmful in terms of its warming potential. And that's something that you don't declare to the customer. And the customer will not go so much in depth, right? So that's a subtle form of misleading. But the way organizationally we try to tackle it is by working with policymakers and sensitizing them to adverse impacts, even though something may be advertised a certain way. So, for example, in case of public procurement, we try to build their capacity to identify these pitfalls, avoid them, and perhaps tighten rules and regulations so that it doesn't happen. So that's one of the ways we try to deal with it.
Yeah, so I think, given that I work in a research organization, like a think tank space, so we work very little with actual products or, actual industry. But the challenge with, it's not really greenwashing, but the challenge that we are facing overall with integrating cooling into this climate action is this more philosophical aspect of adaptation versus mitigation, right? So we might propose that, okay, every city needs to have a cooling shelter. It will save a lot of lives, but then it might disrupt the mitigation side of things, if some of the measures. So we try to ensure that we are giving that cost benefit or that trade-off analysis when proposing a solution to any city or decision maker. But yeah, I don't know if it really talks about greenwashing, but maybe other panelists are more suited to answer this.
Yashvi?
So in terms of greenwashing, I don't think we are doing enough to call out the companies which are actually doing this. So when we consider a product or a technology, I think we have to consider the entire life cycle of it, and how long do they run, and what will be the cost benefit effects. So yeah, I don't think we are doing enough on that scale. But yeah, in regards to work, we do ask for a lot of certification. We ask them for the BIS certifications, and we ask for them for the transparent data of the product. So yeah, that is how we go about it on an organizational level.
Shivani?
Yeah, if I talk about this eco-friendly product or the greenwashing, what you are talking, so there are many products available in the market, but most of them are individual-centric, not the community-centric. And the ACs, the sustainable AC which we are talking about, it still rely on fossil fuel-based electricity. So I think there is need for community based solution, which already exist also. Like in Dehradun, there is Sesdhara Road, which was full of trees. So many trees were there, and its temperature was 5 degrees lesser than what was in the concrete jungle of Dehradun. And recently in 2021, more than 2,000 trees were cut, and these deforestation was because of more infrastructure or road widening. The things which are already there, there is need to conserve that, restore that before moving for next step, because that if that trees are maybe 100 years old or more than that, so at community level, because we have seen from the past disaster history that casualty in the heat is mainly in the vulnerable population, which are very economically weaker section. So there is need for the community-based cooling system, and yeah, thank you.
Great. I think, of course, I think what personally I would say is that I would really look forward to your generation to keep speaking your mind out, highlighting, talking, without fear. I think that's something that maybe for a lot of different vested interests and friendship, X, Y, Z, our generation may not be that comfortable. But I think that's something that I think Gen Z and millennials have done brilliantly. So, my request would be just keep at it and, keep doing that. Without fear of retribution and everything. You don't need to be politically right all the time. I think leave us to, kind of do that. But I think on a similar line, just want to understand that, from as a young leader's perspective, what kind of unique perspective do you bring in in your area of work, whether it's a cooling or a climate change discussion, maybe compared to the older generation, folks like us, or even some of the traditional experts? Any interest there, but apologies if anybody feels bad. But I think, of course, our generation, a lot of the very senior consultants and experts, kind of still are focusing on the rule of thumb and their experience, and some of the older things, they may not be that flexible in experimenting new things. So how do you see, from your perspective, what do you bring in, the unique perspective that actually differs, specifically in your area of work? If you want to start.
Sure. So, if we talk about young generation, so it's either we or like the people who are just in there, like for example, 11 to 20 years old or 20 to 30. So basically, they are the ones who are much more like taught about how is climate change being like, they're taught in the books. So we were not taught about the same. And if you talk about the older generations, then they've just known about it through news and all of those other mediums. So I feel these are the three different generations. Like us, we have like been like taught about it, or we have learned about it through our research work or something like that, and there are other generations as well. So if we talk about the older generations, then they feel that climate change is obviously not that urgent for them, because they'll not obviously not be there. For example, for India, we have the net zero target to be set by 2070. Then our prime minister won't be there, would be 120 years old if we talk about that. But we'll be there to witness that. So that is a very different thing. And then if we look at how the younger generation is actually consuming the different, like for example, appliances, the different cooling appliances, then we need to understand that how they're actually consuming these services, and we need to have a much more customized approach to the same. And I also feel like the younger generation, they have a bigger role to play as compared to the older generations. And if we talk about the AC ownership, for example, in India, then it has been increasing at a much faster pace and will obviously increase at a much more unprecedented rate in the future. And then the younger generations, like who will be there in the future, they'll be the ones who will be consuming that and will be using will be using air conditioners as a service. So they'll be having much more impact on the same. So that's how I feel like younger generations, they are the innovators, if you look at it from that lens. And their approach is very much, will act as a catalyst for change as compared to the older generations. And if you look at, for example, the youth activists in various countries, like the climate activists, they are actually setting up different, like they are actually behaving like different role models as compared to the older generations. It's not like these, like the climate activists are not the older ones. So I feel like this is going to bring about a huge change. Yeah.
It's an interesting perspective, that since you're going to be probably bearing the brunt of it. So maybe, you guys need to probably be more worried and probably take more actions for it. Absolutely kind of agree. Sai, your views?
So I think the way we are approaching, meaning my generation is approaching the problem and keeping it narrowly to the problem of cooling, is that in contrast to one generation previous to us, or maybe two generations previous to us, I feel like there was a very strong technological focus and push, meaning let's throw technology at this problem and let's try to solve it. That approach has worked to a certain extent, but of course there's side effects to that as well. I think with us, what we realize is that the problem is not purely technological, in the sense that there are low-tech solutions also. For example, vernacular technologies that can be integrated with the more advanced technologies to kind of bring about a balance, to not forget old techniques, to not forget traditional methods of how we've kept cool for the last thousands of years. I think that is a key difference in the approach. We are more open to the more advanced technology, while trying to not forget what has happened for the last couple of million.
That's very interesting, because I actually also see that in the kind of the clean tech, the startup ecosystem. There are a lot more innovations happening, but most of the solutions, they're also looking at traditional, as you said, the vernacular technologies and solutions. So I think that's definitely there. Shravan, your experience?
Yeah, I think I was going to say pretty similar things. So I think you have spoken it. Yeah, I think the newer generation looks beyond just technological solution or quick fixes. I think there is much more openness to interdisciplinary thinking. At the same time, I feel like we are also open to more newer tools and technologies. Like if I talk about AI ML, I think there is still not enough buy-in that we see generally. You know, if AI, I mean, as a buzzword, everyone wants it, but if you are using it for actually some practical thing, then the buy-in is a little less. So I think embracing these new technologies, the younger generation is much more open to it, and there is still some little less buy-in on that.
That sounds good. Jayashree,
So I wouldn't say that it's a very unique perspective, but I really believe that cooling and sustainability has to be equitable. So basically, with some of my recent work experience, what I've noticed is people living in the EWS category or the urban poor generally, they are in a very survival mode. They do not really think about energy efficiency. That is the least of their concerns. So we actually have to focus. We have to focus not only in one sector only. We have to focus the cooling and the thermal comfort and for all people, for everyone. So I really believe that's my opinion on it. I really think we should focus on it more, like sustainability being more equitable.
Compared to the old generation, this new generation have access to a lot of data. All this availability of data, research, literature globally, and also this new generation is technically more advanced. So I think with the experience or with the mentorship of the
factor, I think I completely agree with you over there. But talking about, I think some of you mentioned unique thinking, access to a lot of new technologies and information. So, I mean, just not putting you in a spot, but maybe is there a radical solution? It could be cooling or in your area of work that others may be discussing, or dismissing as unrealistic, but you passionately believe in it. So maybe 30 seconds, 1 minute, what would maybe that one thing be and why?
I would want to say that the solution which I'll be speaking of is not of my own, but I just read it somewhere. So basically there's a startup which actually says that they want to give ACs, they want to give ACs like air conditioning, cooling as a rental service instead of for example, just selling it out. And for example, they want to sell the 5-star rated ACs as a rental service. So this will actually really help in the sense of people who are shifting and they are migrating to other places in the search for jobs, and they can actually take up or own up, not exactly own up the ACs, but take them on rent. And this will actually result in saving them in a lot of capex. So I feel this can be mainstreamed into the ideas of bringing a radical change. So yeah, that's what I feel about it.
Sai, anything in your mind?
So I'm not sure if this is radical or cuckoo, but I personally am very excited about a particular technology called the thermocaloric cooling. Research has been going on for a couple of decades, but it has the potential to cool at much lower rates of consumption of energy. So I think it's a worthy moonshot, and there are of course others. I'm looking into them as well, but it's one of the things that I feel has the potential to make a difference.
So I think when we talk about heat resilience, I mean, we need longer term solution. Everyone talks about it. We need to embed urban planning and heat resilience together. We need to look at solutions like cool roof, green roofs. But I think one radical solution, or what I personally feel is need of the hour, is that if you want to save lives and livelihoods at scale, is a national level cooling shelter program. We have already showcased an example with cyclones. We have also colleagues from Odisha. There are already cyclone shelters. I think we do definitely need something of that sort to provide that cooling, community cooling at scale, so that at least we are able to save lives and livelihoods in the shorter term.
Completely agree with you. I think the report that came out yesterday, I think Sustainable Futures, they also clearly said that probably by 2050, I think India, Pakistan, this region is the most susceptible. And I think many of the cities, probably even Delhi, is going to cross the survival thresholds. Yeah. So I think to your point, I mean, whether it's, lucky few probably staying in a, in an AC condition and all that works really well. But what about the laborers? What about the farmers? Yeah. We are not even talking about the impact on, say, glaciers or food. I mean, heat is probably likely to be one of the largest killers or probably the cause of death, maybe, you know, in the next couple of decades. So, absolutely valid point, Jayashree. Yeah.
So my idea, I wouldn't say it would be very radical, but I truly believe that city planning has to be integrated into, when we talk about cooling, city and urban planning has to be integrated into it. Because why not, instead of focusing on just one building, we focus on an area which cools itself. So yeah, that would be my suggestion on it.
One of the radical idea I just read means yesterday only, that was used I think decades ago, that is evaporative earth cooling tunnels. So in which the air just goes into the tunnel within the, is buried under the ground, and then before entering it get cooled. So but it is not accepted because maybe due to high installation cost or technically lack of technical aspect. And secondly, the traditional material which were used earlier, it have much more thermal comfort compared to outside and inner temperature. So they are a good but that are maybe people consider it backward, like mud or adobe, and there are still more materials that can be merged with the climate and the disaster resilient point, and together it can come up with the solution which is thermally comfort as well as disaster resilient. So, yeah.
Interesting that when you're talking about radical, it need not be a new technology, but there's a lot of the things that had existed and what we can probably bring back as well. So that's definitely a good point. So, okay, my next question, I'll probably move away from more from a technical or a product or a solution perspective to more that as a young leader, or let's say the young innovators and professionals. And again, one of the things I think I've been very lucky to is working with a lot of the startups in various different programs, including a climate smart innovation program that we do under Solar Decathlon. Is I just love the energy and the enthusiasm and the kind of innovation that a whole lot of the young entrepreneurs are kind of bringing onto the table, and the kind of I would say the passion at which they are doing it. But what kind of support or say ecosystem you think would actually support this to turn ideas into action more? And again, you don't need to be diplomatically or politically right in your answers, but what would you think can really change from these ideas to action and can support this young entrepreneurs and system?
So I think the participation of youth is very much important and needs to be integrated, like the climate ambition needs to be integrated at all levels of the society. So in that sense, I feel 3 points are very much important. First of all, the point is like there should be much more participation by the youth in the sense of they should be able to voice their opinions. And
to address in that issue in your life, I mean, nature of work and all. Am I clear? No, not.
I mean, it's a little generic question.
It's a generic question, but it's a like for a youngster having a different diverse background. Are there identified that issue which are they going
something which is closer to their heart is what are you saying, or something
in terms of heart, in terms of their background and all?
Oh, sure. Okay.
And how they are going to pave their way in that?
Okay. So I think it's a more question that is there some specific area that you really want to deep dive into and probably develop, and whatever I think the larger organization goals and the teams that you're working on. So if I got his questions right, is that something that you want to passionately drive on your own? Any specific area of interest to you? I mean, anyone and all of you can probably answer that.
Like I am from the disaster background, and my current organization is working on the climate change and the heat. And recently the heat has been recognized as a disaster by many of this Indian state. So that was a different perspective for me earlier. But while working, I found that it's a complete circle. Without, if climate, sustainability, thermal comfort is not the part of disaster which I am working in, like earthquake, landslide, flood. So it is not a complete circle without. So it's a good thing to work in a organization and working with that.
I think it's also to, I think, with the organization to support that different perspectives are there.
Yeah.
It's like, there are no only specific solutions, but are be open to kind of working with a much larger team with different specialization and everything to kind of achieve because the end goal is probably what all of us are working towards, and we are aligned on that. So anything, anybody?
Just to add two more things to that. Personally, I also come from an organization which is very supportive of people from different backgrounds working on things that they may not necessarily be experts at, but allowing them to develop capacity and become experts. So that is a matter of luck. I feel like if your organization is open to such ideas, then great. Second, I also have a slightly different perspective in that when you're not related to a particular field but adjacent, I think it allows you to kind of think outside the box and not get pigeonholed into a particular line of thinking that many experts tend to do sometimes, consciously or unconsciously. So I think, yeah.
I think diversity, I mean, that's where it comes in. I mean, different backgrounds. It's not only about, women, but, location, geography, caste, class. I think, there are various different, and I think that the more diverse, I think people in an organization, I think it's always, I have personally seen really effective because you get some really different ideas. Again, I come from a hardcore industry background and I joined the development sector only 4.5 years back. So again, I mean, initially I was a little lost, but I think it always helped that, I probably brought in a very different perspective from the industry, much faster pace, maybe a little too much of profitability in the mind always, and, how do you make money and stuff like that. But I think it's different, I think diverse people joining the sector and various sectors, I think is extremely important. And I think that's something that we also said that probably one of the Harvard studies said that triple sector leadership, that whether it's a government, whether it's the industry or the civil society organization, we do not have enough leaders even moving within these organizations. Whether I forget about leading or working, I think which is very important and needs to be done to actually bring the best practices of each of these pillars, which are very unique and diverse, and how it can be done. But again, that will also probably allow a lot of the diverse thinking within the organization to be brought forward and probably encouraged. So I think that's, my, it's been my personal experience, and yeah.
I would like to add on one thing. So basically the organization where I was previously working with, most of the people, like in my team, I was a part of the power sector team. Most of them were engineers, and I was an economist, sole economist over there. So there were sometimes conflicts of opinion. But I feel like when I was going through the whole of my research career, then it's not just like a perspective from one field, but also integrating the perspectives from different fields together. So that's very much important, and that actually brings out a holistic perspective to the research as well. So as a part of my previous organization there, obviously taking up me as a person in the team made a difference, and then integrating both the perspective from an engineering side as well as an economist perspective brings about a change. So yeah, that's what. And also a thing that I felt throughout all these years, that there's a serious deficiency, I would say, in the sense of the participation of women in this sector, where also a lot of sessions are done nowadays that this has been a challenge where women are not very much participatory, or they're not given that platform in the sense of being involved in the power sector or if I talk about energy sector as a whole. So that can also be a huge, it's actually a bottleneck and should be improved in the future. Yeah.
I completely agree. I think, when we organize a lot of these events that we did feed in the end of Jan, I think one thing that we always struggle is to have women leaders, especially in the energy sector. I think it's definitely a challenge which I think the larger industry organizations like us, everybody needs to kind of address and work towards and encourage. I think it's very much needed. But it's great to see the panel where we have, I think equal, I think if we leave me out, I think it's more of a woman part. I think my team over there, it's all, women leaders. So I think it's definitely, we need to do way more than this, and completely taking your point. So any other, maybe we digressed a little, but yeah, please. Great.
Hi everyone, I'm Madiha and I'm working as an analyst at Center for Study of Science, Technology and Policy. So before asking a question, I would really say a couple of points. Okay, so I'm basically an electrical engineer, and here I am at Cooling Coalition. I have not worked in cooling, but my organization gave me a chance to attend this coalition so that I can find and get a lot about things, what is happening really in the cooling sector, because we are trying to work in it. So I mean, any organization would be really happy to step in if you are interested in working in any kind of sector or any field. So one thing was that. Second, so basically I'm from Kashmir and I really had no idea about climate change until I didn't step out. So I lived for 2 years in Chennai, so it was a complete drastic change from Kashmir to Kanyakumari kind of thing. I actually had, I was working in construction sector. It's been just 4 months in development sector for me. And what happened was, last year when I visited my hometown, I just visited once a year, so I literally had forgotten the climate of Kashmir. And when I visited there, for a moment, I was like, there's no difference between Kashmir and Chennai, what's happening here? And that was the first time in my life when I really felt that climate change is a real thing, and it's happening. We had no idea about ACs. I mean, I have survived all my life, not all my life, but until I was in Kashmir, without AC and even without fans. I mean, the temperature was superb. We had winds, we had rains, but now the climate is really changing at a very unprecedented rate, I would say. So I also got a little boost. I mean, I really want to work in a sector which will provide me with the opportunities where I can measure the impact I'm making actually. So that's how I came up here. So I would like to ask a question. It's a very generalized question. Where do we find synergies between renewable energy, like the solar sector, the wind sector, with the cooling? Because cooling is related to it's mostly about energy consumption, right? So in the long term, how do you find, I really want to understand a roadmap or maybe a concept kind of thing where I can get that how do we relate the renewable energy sector, which India is really working on right now with a good speed. How do we find the synergies between these two sectors, the cooling sector and the renewable energy sector? Because what I believe is that the energy consumption demands, even though the industrial sector has a lot of energy demands, which I would say hard to abate sectors are there, which are really hard to decarbonize. A lot of energy consumption is happening. So how do we find these synergies? If I would really get an
question,
idea.
but I think the whole ICAP was also kind of designed around that, because there is going to be a massive challenge. Energy, I think the cooling demand is going to be the main reason for the energy increase, especially in countries like India, which is supposed to grow up by almost like an 8x. And again, if you're talking about, say, an AC penetration is still about 7 to 8%. In an ideal situation, if you're looking at a 50% penetration of, say, ACs by, say, 2050 or so, there is no way I think India can actually meet that kind of energy requirement. So that's where I think ICAC came in, wherein saying that, okay, what are the solutions across all touch points? How can we reduce the, from a technology, from a refrigerant, all of the perspective? And what you're talking about, the renewable energy, that's the last mile. Energy efficiency comes in between. So that's the, what we say is the most critical bit. You need to have the current and the future appliances energy efficient. You need to reduce the demand, and the energy increase that you are seeing today needs to be filled in by renewable energy. That's where the wind and the solar power comes in. So that's what we also say about a lean, mean, and green philosophy, that you design extremely lean, you have the best equipment, that's where you want to come in, and to kind of whatever is the reduced demand, now you kind of bridge that with the renewables and the green energy that you're coming in. But again, I'll leave it to the young leaders. You want to add something to what she said, anything that you want to comment on? And we are seeing this problem, I mean, as you said, Kashmir, I think the global West is a classic example. I mean, whether it's US, Europe, everywhere, I think there's the same problem. They forget about air conditioning, they don't even have fans in their houses. And now you're talking about actually ACs and others getting sold in countries where they had never even kind of probably heard of these appliances, or probably, they just designed those. But yeah, I mean, it's a huge, and people still debate if climate change is real. I mean, that's the sad part. I mean,
Yeah, so I think what she's trying to ask is, in the sense, if we look at renewable energy, then how it's the availability of renewable energy, how it's available on a daily basis, at which time period, and how the demand from air conditioners, for example, in India, we are witnessing peak demand during evening time periods. And then we have renewable energy which is available, like for example, solar is available during the daytime, and wind is available at a very different time during night. So how do we map both is very much important, in the sense we are facing this challenge of, if for example, if you look at the time of day aspect of both supply as well as demand, then it's a huge challenge to be tackled in the near future. So I think that's what she was trying to address, the synergies between the two. And then energy efficiency will actually play a huge role, where if we buy more energy efficient appliances, then this will actually reduce the demand, and obviously there is a much lesser need to scale up renewable solutions, as well as put a much more lesser strain on the grid as well. So yeah, that's what I feel will be a challenge, huge challenge for the government as well to tackle in the near future. But still much more research can be done on the same, to how to scale up renewable energy, and how we are witnessing demand, like the demand for air conditioners, for example, from the residential sector in specific. And that's adding up to the peak demand in the evening time periods, and how do we map it with the renewable energy. Yeah, thank you.
Storage is a main classic and major discussion areas right now. Yeah. Sai and Shravan.
Yeah,
Sorry, I think we'll have to
uh,
break. This is the last question. I think we are 1 o'clock. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think
We'll
I
just hear
just from
from
your first anecdote about ACs in Kashmir, I also remembered a very nice article that I recently read, where this women from USA had actually written that her father was someone who did not believe in climate change, and what really made him believe in climate change was that insurance companies have started to factor in climate change modeling, right? So that's a very practical kind of real case, real world use case of, because insurance companies generally do catastrophe modeling anyway. So if climate change was not real, and because areas are becoming uninsurable, that is why this is I think that is also one more anecdote. On your other question, so there are two things to it. CW recently came out with a report where we have modeled at a 15-meter resolution till 2030 the power demand, and how can we meet that demand. And what we found was that if we are able to achieve the targets that we have set out for clean energy, then we will be able to meet that demand. I mean, of course, there are more challenges like storage and other things, but that is what at least the modeling suggests. So you can definitely go through it. I think it will be very helpful for you to answer your question. And when we are working at city level heat action plans, one question that we get asked very frequently is that how do we align this entire cool roof solution with the solar rooftop scheme, because there is already some funding which is coming into that. So I think that convergence finding between different solutions and different policies is something that we really need to look at as well.
Great. I think you're at the right place. I think the whole idea of the India Cooling Coalition is to bring actually the coalition, create knowledge base, have interactions and discussions. So I would really request you to keep actively following us and attending our kind of events and sessions. Love to have you there. I think that's what makes us a little unique and different. So you're the right place is what I can say. So thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope I didn't keep it too serious and technical. I think that's what I promised the team as well here. Thank you. And again, you've been a wonderful audience. Thank you for asking the questions. And again, great. Keep at it. And as I all said before, pat yourself on the back. You guys are doing a great job. And keep inspiring other people, and including older folks like us. We always look forward to kind of getting inspired by you. So thank you so much, and we'll have a group photo. And yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to all our speakers and participants for the valuable insights they shared. The discussions today will surely contribute meaningfully to shaping India's cooling agenda, from bold ideas to strategic direction. We will now break for lunch and networking. Please join us for lunch and take this opportunity to connect with fellow attendees. We look forward to seeing you back on time for the core thematic sessions of the day. Enjoy your lunch.